Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's a Tech Report podcast. I'm your host, Luke McCready, and I'm here with Scott Wasson, Jeff Campman, and Ben Funk. And we're at the Tech Report podcast, techreport.com. I got to say Tech Report over and over and over again because I know the previous host did. This is the #1 place for news and reviews in the computer hardware world.
All right. And we have a new host, ladies and gentlemen, this evening. And Luke, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Jordan's last episode was just last weekend, and we're already trying out new hosts. This is insane. But Luke, you are let's just introduce yourself to the folks most folks, I guess, the folks who are watching. So what is your connection to the site?
I have been a listener and reader for probably 4 years. It's a Tech Report podcast that drew me in, and then I started reading reluctantly maybe 6 months after that. So I've been around the forums a while. Not a whole lot on the forums, just the comments and the articles. I love Scott's unbiased approach, and I love how everything is just, we're not a sellout, we're not taking bribes, we want to tell you the straight scoop. And it works for me.
Cool. So is there a forum handle that people would know you by? Yeah,
I go under by the name Milo Burke.
All right.
Which maybe I should be doing here. Did I already say my name? Is it too late? Can I switch it? Shoot.
Let's reset that next episode.
Back into the witness protection program.
Yeah, reset that. Anyway, so all right. Well, welcome, Luke, and we are. This will be interesting. I think we're going to hopefully have another voice on the podcast. I'm looking forward to it. And we also have another new guy here. So, Ben,
hi. Yeah.
You're not that new.
No, I've been around. Well, I read your stuff at ours, and
1998,
so
baby.
Yeah, I know, man. Like that dual Celeron and blowing stuff up, and it was awesome. And I followed you to your own site, and I've been hanging around the forum. I have never said my forum name out loud, and I'm not going to start. How do you
say that? I was going to ask.
I have no idea. I don't know.
Give us a shot. You know better than anyone.
My wife pronounces it Der Funkenstein. I don't know if that's right or not. That's what we'll go with.
Works for me.
But that's me.
Yep.
You have like 391,000 forum posts. You registered in the Middle Ages. You've been here forever.
Yeah.
But you were here before Scott, right?
Probably so. And
okay.
He still lets me, with some supervision, post on the front page now. That's crazy.
When did you start writing news posts? It was recent.
Just the start of the month, yeah. I think like the second or third was, no, not the third. The second, I think, was my first day writing news.
Yeah.
Scott, are you going to let him write again?
But I think he needs to address the camera issue.
Yeah, this is bad news.
So, guys, he does not have jaundice, as far as we know.
He's not a character from The Simpsons, as far as we know.
I think we believe that his health is good and that his webcam is bad. So we're hoping for an upgrade on that front at some point.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks, Dell, for the amazing camera on this this Sandy Bridge era laptop.
Thank you for buying Dell. We cut corners wherever we can.
Yeah.
And that is one corner they definitely cut. But I think Apple cut that corner with the webcam in the new MacBook, right? $1,400, and it's like 640 by 480, right?
I don't know.
How could you ask for more?
How could more fit when it's that thing, right? Oh, did I just bump my mic? Which is the other thing I should mention is I have a new microphone setup that's in front of me here. If you can, I bumped it again. I'm getting used to it. I'm figuring it out, but it's nice. The folks at Monoprice, Steve over there, hey Steve, hooked me up with a new setup for the podcast. We've got a pop filter here. We've got a nice microphone. It's on a stand, and I don't have to have a headset on my head while we're recording and while we're on videos. So thanks to the guys at Monoprice for that. I'm still figuring out how to use this really nice equipment. Somebody asked me what kind of mic it was or something about a condenser, and I was like, I don't know because I don't know this stuff. But so far this has been great, and it's very liberating not to have the giant thing on our head. On my head. So I think at some point we may be able to get some of the other staff hooked up with this stuff if it works well. So thanks to Monoprice for making it happen. They're sponsoring the site this month, and they're a great source for cables and audio equipment and all sorts of things like that. So, guys, we should just go ahead and I was going to say we should go ahead and get into the news, but we need to talk about one thing that I think a bunch of us are going to be attending, which is the TR BBQ. So, Ben, are you going to be there this year?
I can't. I work at my full-time job. I work with schools, and they're getting started up.
It's a little late this year.
Yeah, getting away in August is just impossible. Generally speaking, August is just a bad time. So maybe one day in the future, I'd love to go. I've been secretly trying to plan it and calling in sick, and I haven't had the courage yet to do that.
Okay. That's what I'm doing. I'm calling in sick.
Are you really?
My boss isn't listening. Yeah, I was hoping to make it a long trip and try to drive all around the Great Lakes, but it looks like it's just going to be a quick drive from Minnesota to Michigan and a quick drive back again. Just got to fit it all in.
Now, how quick is that drive?
9+ hours. My girlfriend wants to come with me, and she wants to drive around through the Upper Peninsula. And I'm thinking, adding 4 hours, really?
I don't know. That's a lot. I mean, if you're doing that, you're doing it in one day?
Yeah, one day there and one day to be present, and then one day to drive back. So 3 days total.
And you're not spending time. You're just driving on a different road, right?
Yeah. I mean, maybe there's a sculpture garden or local food. Who knows? But, it'd be nice to spend some time in the area, look at a lake or something, instead of just stay in the car for 9 to 13 hours each way.
Yeah, that's rough. Well, let's talk about real quick for those who aren't aware. The TR BBQ is something that started in the forums. One of our forum members, a longtime guy, handle is Dr. Fish, has a lakeside cottage in Holland, Michigan, which is kind of a resort type little town. It's quaint, it's cool. The cottage setup is neat. It's got beach access and big trees and a yard. And they started this up. They do this get together there. They have barbecue, real good barbecued ribs, not just cooking a hamburger outside, but barbecue. I'm from Kansas City, so this is an important distinction that I would make about the difference between a cookout and a barbecue. So, but we do that, and then a bunch of people from the site come, longtime readers, forum members, and we have a hardware swap meet. We play yard games, cornhole, with the bags, and there's a tournament. And I usually I think I'm going to bring a nice video card this year to give away at I haven't confirmed which one yet, but I think I'm going to bring one to give away at the barbecue for the winner of the cornhole tournament. Which that gets pretty fierce competition because the prize is usually pretty good. We usually bring something up, and then we start around noon or 1 with food, and then we hang out through the afternoon, and then in the evening, then we do fireworks. And that has grown as our budget for that, as everybody kind of just chips in. Our budget for that has kind of grown as it's gotten better, and we've been like, hey, let's do more of that. And you can imagine a bunch of TR readers deciding to engineer where you blow something up. That's pretty impressive. So that's good. And then we go down to the beach and have kind of a cookout and cook hot dogs and stuff like that and hang out in the evening. So it is a day-long thing. You don't have to be there for the whole day, but it's family friendly. People bring wives, girlfriends, kids, whatever. It's usually guys that are reading the site. That's just the way it is. But and it's a lot of fun. And I'd encourage anybody who's listening, who enjoys the podcast, enjoys the site, to consider coming. It's the 15th of August. There's a forum thread on the TR BBQ. We'll link it in the show notes. And it's a great time. So. And Jeff, I think this is your first year, right? So you're going to be.
This will be my first year at the barbecue. So.
And Luke, you too. So,
yeah, my first year too.
So get with it, Ben.
Sorry, guys.
I already begged. I already pleaded. Got on my knees, but you said no.
Yeah.
Oh well, next year.
Yeah. I do have to feed my family, guys. I'm sorry.
Priorities, man. Priorities.
Yeah. For that reason, I'm flying out of Grand Rapids into San Francisco the day after the barbecue to start IDF. It was a near run thing whether I can make it this year too. So Yeah, but I think I'm going to do it, and it's just going to be a weird agenda. I'm going to have like my barbecue like clothes and stuff along with all my nice clothes for the show. So, or nice. It's tech. You don't really ever have to dress nice. You just dress a little less ratty, you know. So
You put on pants.
yeah, I mean, you know. Anyway, hey guys, let's go ahead and get into the news, which I think Ben and Jeff, you guys wrote most of this, but let's go ahead.
Should I transition us here?
Yeah,
looks like, Ben, you wrote an article about the R9 Fury and Fury X, and you're trying to figure out if we can buy them. What is the answer? Can we buy them?
No. Well,
disappointing.
No. Yeah, seriously. I mean, this was my favorite article because I think I told you guys before the show. I got my first hate mail as a TR contributor over this post because I didn't wait long enough for them to become available. But no, very few even listings for the Fury X. All the board partners had them listed on Newegg and Amazon and Tiger Direct, and just not available. We could find a couple in Canada. So if you want to use your fake Monopoly money to buy a Fury X, you can certainly do that, though.
Let me ask you, you said all the board partners. I see you found a listing for the Asus one that we reviewed, and then the Sapphire one.
I'm sorry. Yeah, when I say all the board partners, I was talking about the Fury X. For the Fury, it was just Asus and Sapphire, where I could find one listing for each. At the time anyway, Amazon didn't even know the card existed, and Tiger Direct was basically the same way. So very few listings for the Fury, which had launched just barely a week ago now.
Yeah. So this is something that we do from time to time with GPU launches because they're hard. It's hard to size the market and know what the demand for your product is going to be. And sometimes it's hard to get enough of them initially when you start producing a new product to satisfy demand. And in this case, it looks like that there are not nearly enough cards to satisfy demand. The reason I ask about the Fury board partners is only Asus and Sapphire have shipped anything. And talking to some of the other guys, I kind of get the sense that that's because they couldn't get enough cards or chips to make boards to have a viable product yet. I think they'd like to, and it may happen.
Well, they're big, right? The chips themselves are big, and then the substrate is a big deal, at Max.
It's weird because of the high bandwidth memory, HBM. The GPU is a fairly large one, but the memory with the GPU together is very compact. The deal is, though, that the memory is packaged together with the GPU onto a substrate. And that, I think, may be where we're having a supply issue. And it could be not enough GPUs, or it could be not enough of those HBM memory stacks. But either way, those things go together. And it's not like GDDR5 where you just go out and buy something off the shelf, pair it up with your GPU and roll, right? So it is the case that the AMD took some risk developing HBM and rolling out a product with a new memory type on it. And in this case, for whatever reason, I don't know the answer. I have heard rumors, but for whatever reason, there aren't enough of them available to satisfy demand. So we'll keep watching that. I mean, the hope is that this gets to the point where people can buy them when they want to. We spent a lot of time covering these products, and they're interesting. But right now, I do think some people are buying them. I think if you were really vigilant and you watched, I think they'll go in and out of stock quickly. But there just aren't enough to just go out on a whim and just order it and get one. So that's what I don't know. That's my sense of it. So we'll keep watching. Ben, maybe in a couple of weeks we can do an update.
You bet.
Do we have an idea whether it's a really short supply or really high demand?
I think that the rumors are that the supply is not good, and that's why we only have two board vendors that are shipping, Asus and Sapphire shipping the R9 Fury. But nobody will give you concrete numbers straight up for sales. At least nobody will give me. Maybe they will you. If they will you, that'd be great. Get them. Let me know.
I'll ask.
But I do clearly some people want to buy them and they don't have enough. But I think that if you were blaming one side or the other, right now it's the supply.
Okay. Well,
Right.
we're ready for the next topic. It looks like Apple has made a lot of money recently.
Yes.
It's the first time that's ever happened. Is it right, Jeff?
Yes. No, not really. Okay, so Apple just released their second quarter financial results, for whatever financial year quarter they're in. And yes, they made money hand over fist again. They made $49.6 billion in revenue. That's 33% more year over year. And they made $10.7 billion in net profit, which is, up 40% roughly. So yeah, they're still growing. But I mean, it's one of these things. Like if you watch the financial results or stock performance of the company, it did the stock has dropped recently. And I think that's due to the fact they only sold 47.5 million iPhones this past quarter, and I guess Wall Street was expecting more. And because Apple didn't meet some, mystery numbers fabricated and estimated by Wall Street, I guess they're mad with them. But yeah, they didn't sell as many iPhones as expected. 47.5 is still a lot. 47.5 million.
Yeah, the sales were up compared to a year ago. It was 35 million iPhones,
Yeah.
and this year it was 47.5 million. Wall Street will have estimates, and the expectations will affect the price of this stock, and coming in below them in some metric will cause it to fluctuate. But
Sure.
at the end of the day, these really solid results. One thing I noticed was it looks like Mac sales grew year over year.
Yeah, this is one of the weird kind of things about Apple right now, is that Macs in general are outperforming the PC market as a whole. Like Macs are gaining market share or selling more units in a declining market.
Yes. The PCs, clearly we saw from AMD and Intel and Microsoft results, PCs declined in the past quarter a lot. I think Microsoft said Windows sales was down 22%.
Windows OEM sales were down 22%, which is just jaw-dropping.
And Mac unit sales rose year over year from 4.5 million to 4.8 million.
Yeah. So there was modest growth there.
So they grew in a down quarter for the rest of the market. And, that goes right along with what you kind of expect. Have you been to a coffee shop?
I mean, yeah. I just bought one. So.
Did you get a new one?
Yeah, I got a MacBook Pro.
Ooh, did you
recently
get the 15 or the?
Yeah, 15-inch.
With the Haswell?
Yes.
With the Broadwell, I mean?
Yeah. No, not Broadwell. They haven't put... See, this is the thing. It's kind of weird about MacBook Pros right now. They have not put the Broadwell quads in them. They just mildly refreshed the Haswell ones.
So you get the new touchpad?
No. Mine was refurbished. No, they did. Mine was refurbished. So we got the one with the Haswell CPU, Iris Pro graphics, and the regular ClickPad because it was a lot cheaper. But we still got a Mac.
Okay.
The first one ever. So.
You haven't had a Mac before?
Nope.
Somehow I thought you had. Oh,
I haven't had an iPhone for a while, but.
There you go. Well, I mean, you're one of apparently a whole lot of people who are buying these things now. So, I don't know.
Now, so Apple's not doing the one part of their product portfolio that's not doing so well is the iPad actually. So they sold 10.9 million tablets this past quarter, and they sold 13.3 million this time last year. I think I said that was a 22% decline.
Yeah. Well, I mean, phablets are taking off. They're selling tons of iPhone 6 Pluses.
Right.
And the tablets are hurting. The question I have is, do you think that some of that is just because there are a lot of satisfied people who own iPads from the last few years?
Yes. I think nobody knows what the replacement cycle is for iPads yet. My dad just got an iPad Air 2. Like, he had an original iPad from whenever they were released. Like, was it '09? I forget. But he kept that thing for quite some time. So I expect that people are holding on to these longer, and you can pass them down to your kids. And it's just not. I mean, it's certainly not a product I've ever felt a compelling need to buy. I have enough computers. But,
you know what? I think we lost Luke.
No, I'm here. I'm just.
We lost your video, dude.
My webcam apparently shorted out or something. I reseated the USB, and I should be coming back shortly. I'll restart the video.
All our video is.
Nathan's going to
cameras are messed up now. I apologize to folks on the stream, but I can't fix that without Luke's got to get back with this. So anyway, let's move on to the next topic.
We're not going to talk about the Apple Watch, Scott.
Okay, what happened? No one knows. They wouldn't give us figures for that.
Because they don't know what happened. A lot of people are estimating. Like, they want to say, "Oh, this thing's a failure. Oh, it's a roaring success." Well, we don't know yet. Like,
there was a number they gave for other sales or something.
Yes, it was other sales.
Then they said that some of the things that were in the other sales category were negative,
right?
Like somehow in
that's
terms
probably
of
iPods
from year to year or quarter to quarter, whatever it was, and yet there was a nice gain in the total, and they basically attributed that to the watch selling. And this goes back to one of those original things that they could basically not sell very many of these, considering the number of iPhone users out there, and still sell more of them than anybody else in that market by a whole bunch.
Right. I think some analysts are already saying they have 75% of the smartwatch market,
which sounds to me like they failed because who are they beating? I guess Moto and
I like Pebble and
yeah.
Fitbit and all these other fitness trackers, basically. That, but yeah.
All right, let's we need to do a survey of the new guys. So Ben, are you an Apple user? Are you do you hate them with a passion that will never cease, or what is your?
I'm a frustrating person because I think everything is awesome. I did go through a spell where I used PowerPC Max because I just hated Vista so bad. I just did not enjoy the Windows Vista era, so I used Macs. About the time Windows 7 came out, bought a PC. I have an iPhone. I've had an iPhone for since January. But I just think computers are great, so I'll use anything.
Luke, what's your are you have any Apple feelings or allegiances?
Actually, I'm Amish.
Oh,
I don't have any technology.
There's no, not really an issue.
Is that okay to say? We're not going to offend any Amish people listening to the podcast, I hope.
It's a big part of our
question to ask.
Yeah,
you're gonna get email.
I hope I do
email.
that, and we can read it in the next episode. That'd be great. No, I'm a Windows guy, and people in the audio world tell me I shouldn't be, but I am. And I use Android phones.
There you go.
Well, singular at each moment in time, that is.
And Android phone.
Yes.
So what are you sporting a Samsung, or what are you sporting?
Yeah, Samsung. I upgraded to the S6 Edge, and I like the new camera. But other than that, it's way more fragile, and everything else feels like a minor step back.
Really? Even the OLED? Those Samsung OLEDs are awesome. Well,
the last screen was great. All the screens are great. And even back to the S2, that was a good screen too. They all look vibrant. They're all sharp. They're all as the pixels are as dense as you need. So I just didn't feel I like that they put the new wireless charging in it stock, because I thought, thank goodness, I broke off the little flap on my last waterproof phone by opening, closing it to charge it at night. So this one, surely they'll keep the waterproof specification, and I can just put it on my wireless charger at night. It'll be perfect, and it won't wear out that flap. And then they took off the waterproof certification. So, the fingerprint reader is substantially better. It's actually usable now. So I use that on a daily basis instead of the old one. I'm like, this just isn't workable.
Yeah, that's good. The bad ones are annoying, and you wish they weren't even there. I know what you mean.
I love the fingerprint reader on the iPhone. I've never used any security on a phone before, but now that my thumb can unlock the phone, I'm actually being smart about security.
Yeah.
Yep, I use that, and the only problem is I kind of just will reach in my pocket and grab my phone and put my thumb on the button like I'm maybe going to do something, maybe not, and then I'll just unlock it without and it's unlocked in my pocket and it's typing messages to tweeting stuff while I'm walking around.
That explains a lot of the weird stuff we've seen in your Twitter channel.
Yeah, my Twitter feed gets pretty weird.
So if it wasn't funny, he didn't mean to send it.
That's basically it. It was just a pocket thing. So yeah. All right. Speaking of funny, let's talk about Qualcomm.
Yeah,
that was you, Ben, right?
It sure was. Yeah, this is so funny. It's sad. From the Reuters article that I read to build the post, they really made it sound like this hedge fund wanted better stock performance. And that was all they were really interested in, which, of course, you want to make money on it, I'm sure. That was the only thing profitable, or the only thing that they had about it was just trying to make more profit on it. And so Qualcomm, I'm sure the margins on their CPUs, their SoCs is pretty low. So they're cutting a bunch of staff. They're trying to save a boatload of money, and they're talking about spinning off the chip business and just licensing patents, which is kind of sad. Not much more to say about it other than it just looks like a big financial move, and not really anything that's driven by anything else.
Well, businesses respond to financial incentives. That's kind of what they do.
True. Yeah,
but yeah, it is. I don't know enough about. I haven't tracked their situation really carefully to say exactly what all is behind this, but there's some clear dynamics here. One of them is just, you guys know this, I guess, but hardware is hard, and there aren't a lot of margins oftentimes in just hardware. Like we just talked about Apple making a ton of money. Well, they're really unique because they have software and hardware and everything, the whole ecosystem in one piece. And the guys who just make hardware, it's hard for them to be profitable. Qualcomm also has, on the hardware side, some real challenges. Companies like MediaTek taking ARM's tech and very rapidly integrating the latest stuff into SoCs and selling them for not very much money, and they're usually good enough for a big chunk of the market. And on top of that, Intel is out there pursuing mobile very aggressively and trying to take business from Qualcomm. And then Samsung has been putting their own Exynos processors into their phones.
The Snapdragon 810 really seemed like a kind of a stumble for them, just because they didn't make it into Samsung's phones. And the phones they did make it into, at least initially, like the HTC M9, they at least have the stigma of either running hot or throttling a lot, and at least reported to run slower than the phones they replaced. And when you kind of trip and fall like that, just look at AMD. They've tripped and fallen a handful of times just based on a hot running slower CPU.
Yeah, Samsung cited problems with thermals and throttling, I believe, when they went with the Exynos. Whether or not that was really their motivation, that was what they said when they didn't take the Qualcomm chip, right? And I was looking the other day at, the OnePlus is coming out. I think Monday is the announcement of the OnePlus 2.
Yeah, it's soon. And
they're putting the 810 in it, I believe. And they were talking about, these things now, they ship them with 8 cores a lot of times. And it's 4 large cores, like a Cortex A57, and then 4 small cores like an A53, and they'll switch between them depending on the workload to try to be more power efficient. And that's something that the ARM partners do, because I think integration-wise that works for them. But they were talking about the way the routine utilizes the different cores, and they said that they actually tuned it so that they wouldn't use 2 cores that are physically next to each other at the same time if they could avoid it. And so there's like a localized thermal issue that they're trying to work around by actually allocating, threads depending on like where physically is the CPU like not hot already, or how can we do this? It was the first time I'd heard of a dynamic voltage and frequency scaling routine like working on like physical thermal placement in order to solve a problem. So everybody deals with these problems all the time. You mentioned AMD, Ben, but I was surprised to hear like, oh, we're dealing with it on this level, and we're talking about it like openly as a way that we deal with it. So, yikes,
Yeah.
So we can take a step back. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So they're struggling with financials, and Wall Street just wants them to produce. Isn't that part of the problem that Dell was going through for a while? Isn't that why, is the owner's name Michael Dell? Is that why he bought Dell back from the shareholders? Because he said to make this company grow long term, we need to lose money or not make much money in the short term. That doesn't mean the end of the company. It just means we're planting the seeds in order to have a more successful company in the future. And the stockholders weren't that patient. Wall Street isn't that patient. Is that kind of what Qualcomm's going through?
I don't know. I mean, it sounds like there's involvement of a hedge fund here, and I'm not sure that Qualcomm has an option to like have a founder and a private equity group take them private, or that they would take it if they had it. They're a very different company from Dell. But yeah, Dell clearly was. It's kind of interesting because Dell's still kind of doing what Dell has done, but now they don't any longer have to answer these questions from shareholders and analysts about, what about the PC market, and what about its status, and what are you doing here, and what are you doing there, in quite the same way. And I think they've been able to focus. I don't know what happens at Qualcomm. I think I feel vastly underqualified to answer that question. So, but yeah, they face challenges, and it comes down to one trend, which is the democratization of computing. Why do you buy their chip if you go buy somebody else's cheaper? And if you can license the part of it that is Qualcomm proprietary and still get the total solution cheaper, why wouldn't you? And so, yeah.
Well, and their chips this year are all using ARM's standard designs, right? A57 and A53 and no crate.
Right, because crate was 32-bit only, and everybody kind of got surprised when Apple went to 64-bit when they did, and then everybody in the market decided they needed to go there, and ARM had the Cortex A57 out before Qualcomm has delivered their own custom core. So we expect a 64-bit custom core from them, but that's not what they're shipping. Yeah.
Yeah, so this year they really are no different than MediaTek or whoever else.
Wow, that hurts to say that. I think Qualcomm has really been good with integration and built some impressive SoCs. They've got their own GPU, the Adreno.
That's true.
That has been impressive in its way in days past. And if you look at like I still love my Nexus 7 based on the old Snapdragon, with quad crate. That was a good solution. I'm not saying that MediaTek isn't, but I do think that Qualcomm has been a step above that for lots of reasons that aren't just the custom core. But anyway, it's hard. It is hard to make that case though when you're talking to a maker of smartphones to ship into India or something like that, where they've got like millions and tens of millions of units. Will you pay the extra few dollars for the Qualcomm chip? Not necessarily.
Ben, does this herald the end of the smartphone?
No.
Okay.
Come on now. Come on.
So we're still going to have smartphones. Okay, good.
Well, I'm going to have smartphones. I'm going to have PCs too. So.
Oh, I heard those died years ago. Nobody's using those anymore.
Oh, yeah. PC's been dying for so long, it's hard to remember what it was, even.
Well, with webcams like this, you can kind of see why.
Yeah, dude, get your iPad out. This would be better.
Well, I asked, do you want me to use my phone? You said no.
Well, I didn't want you to be like selfie guy or something.
No, we'll get this fixed by the next time I'm here.
Okay. Now, Ben, the selling of the Fab, is that a rumor? Is that official?
It was what was his name? Derek, what's his name? Hold on a second.
Oh, it's not selling the Fab.
No, it's not. Well, they don't
have a
their
Fab.
own stuff.
Yeah.
The chip design business is what they were looking at spinning off. But no, there's nothing confirmed yet. But that was one of the things that this hedge fund wanted. And so it's one of the things that, as they step back and look at how they want to structure the company, that they're maybe possibly thinking about considering.
Yeah.
Okay.
So speaking of cheap phones.
Yeah, cheap democratic smartphones with Intel's aggressively low-cost chips.
Yeah.
Sounds like Jeff has a story here.
I did. So Asus already launched the ZenFone 2, which is like a $199 unlocked smartphone with Intel Bay Trail atoms. I forget atoms in them anyway. And they've made this cheaper one now. It's called the ZenFone 2E, and it's $120 unlocked. And it's got a dual-core Clover Trail Plus atom in it, and only a gig of RAM, and 8 gigabytes of onboard storage. So it's cheap, but I don't know. It's a pretty nice phone for $120. It seems like it's got like a 720p screen. I don't think my iPhone 5 is much better than that.
No, I think if it's an iPhone 5, you're like 1136 by something like that.
Yeah,
not even 720.
This is the same size as the ZenFone 2, not E, which means it's the size of roughly the size of an iPhone 6 Plus. It's a big phone for the price.
Right.
So
just the screen resolution is
not super high.
Meh. Yeah, but
it's $119.
Yeah. And it's only on AT&T and only then on their GoPhone prepaid service. So it's, this is clearly something and it is in fact something you buy at Walmart or Target right now, just off the shelf.
Yeah. So I've got a ZenFone 2 that Lord knows when I'll get the review done, but I'm supposed to be reviewing it. And this is not clearly as nice as that. Right. Because of the internals, but it's the same sort of physical size and shape, and it's nice. I mean, they've done a pretty darn good job with that stuff. I can see a cut feature version of it being a pretty attractive thing. Did you see the joke in the comments about it's got 4 cores and a gig of RAM, so it's just like an iPhone 6 Plus?
Yeah.
Ouch.
So yeah, I think it's really not just like an iPhone 6 Plus, but that's a pretty good line. So, but it's only 8 gigs of flash too, and then
it's got a micro SD slot in it.
Right.
I've never owned an Android phone, so I don't know what the utility of that is, but it's there.
It means that you can work really hard to move apps over there and then fail, and then just be like, forget it, I'm putting media over there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really not fun. That's one of the reasons I got a large iPhone, is because I came from a 16 gig Galaxy S4 that as soon as you install all the updates that Google Play wants, you're almost out of space. So, 8 gigs in this phone is you're really not installing a whole lot.
Yeah, I expect something, people will install Twitter, Facebook, and a handful of apps on, that'll be it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've straddled that micro SD card issue for a few years, and I put my photos and videos over there, and I'm a big audiobook guy. I always got audiobooks on my phone. And if all those go on the micro SD card, I've never had an issue. So how many apps are you guys installing? What do you guys do there?
I just install everything.
You go to Google Play, all download. Yeah.
Like, I actually don't know the last time I installed an app. I'm pretty content with my app status.
Yeah, one thing that if you have an NVIDIA Shield device, then you're installing pretty big games. And they have their own custom tools for moving games over to, separate storage, because it is kind of an issue in Android. And the truth is, their custom tools have been troublesome from time to time. and so it isn't great. It's not a great situation you can't say, oh, it's got an SD card and then like everything's okay. Like, right? If there's not enough flash storage on it to start, it's going to be a kind of a pain in the rear. And that's maybe Asus has something that manages that. I don't know, but it usually is kind of an issue. So anyway, this is interesting because it's a cheap phone. The other thing is, did you see the guys in the comments who are going to use a redundant array of inexpensive phones? They just buy several of these and raid them together.
Oh gosh.
It's going to turn into a server farm. I mean, you tie all those weak little cores together. They could maybe open a spreadsheet.
Yeah, but this is what Clover Trail Plus, so it's not the latest Intel stuff.
No,
it doesn't have the Silvermont microarchitecture core, and so it's not going to be all that fast. So yeah, you might want to team up a bunch of them, but probably you just want to throw it out the window. But it's not fair. That's not fair. I'm sure that for the market, I think actually for the market, it's one of the better options. But anyway, let's move on to something maybe more exciting.
So Ben, you wrote about the Xbox One maybe getting PC game streaming.
Yeah, this was more fun to write than it was to read. When I first
your posts are like that, Ben.
well, when I first
I kid
heard about it, the whatever reference it was that I first found made it sound like this was a definite thing and it was going to be awesome. And the more I read, like what exactly Phil Spencer wrote, the more I saw it was like, I'm going to maybe just kind of keep somebody's hopes up without really, dealing with the hard issue that honestly, this is what they should be doing. Streaming from the Xbone to the PC is interesting if you've got like a 2-in-1 device and somebody else is watching TV in the living room, kind of a side case kind of thing, not something you'd want to do a lot of. And when it got those features, when the machine got those features, I tried them out because I have one. And streaming to my PC was slow. It's not as good as native. The video wasn't coming across in 1080p. The controls were not as responsive as they are on the console. This isn't something you want to do all the time. So for the system to go the other way, to get PC games on the system, on the Xbox in the living room, I think would be more interesting just because it's not as big a strain on some weak Jaguar cores. Maybe going the other way would be a better experience. And it's something I actually want to do. I sit at the computer all day, pounding away for TR, working on my day job. And a lot of times I want to play a game, but I don't want to be at my desk. So streaming to the living room is really interesting to me. And so, I thought, well, let's follow up on this. It turned out it's like, well, we're going to add keyboard and mouse support, and it already supports keyboards, so we'll have mouse support, and that's a prerequisite for all this, but we don't really have any plans. So I had to take a story that wasn't really a story and turn it into a recipe for disaster, and that's what we have.
Well, this is kind of the way Microsoft works, right? They're like, oh, we'll say something that maybe sounds like it might be something nice to say about PC gaming, because that's what we're going to do, and then we're never going to follow up on that. But we'll smile at you.
Yeah,
we
started
to smile at you.
That goes back to Games for Windows Live, right? That was the first thing that Microsoft that was the first thing that Microsoft did for PC gaming. That was not really for PC gaming.
Well, since they launched the Xbox, they've had a weird, like, being custodian of the Windows platform. They've had a weird relationship with Windows gaming, PC gaming, and this is like the latest reset that came around, like Windows 10 being announced and whatever. They're a little bit more like, yeah, guy, maybe we'll do something nice. Or here's something, we can stream those Xbox games to your PC. Because we know the Xbox is a gaming location and the PC is not. So we'll help you out, you know. And the PC gamer doesn't want to hear that, right?
Right.
No. You really, like, the Xbox is a subset of the PC as a hardware device. Let me run that little VM that you put on the Xphone for the games in a sufficiently powerful PC, and I can run my games there. And furthermore, let's just maybe treat the PC gaming business as like an important thing. And if you're going to spend a ton of money to lock up an exclusive title for your platforms, ship that title on the PC at the same time you do on the Xbox. Like,
yeah, they're not doing it with Tomb Raider.
No.
They're
that hurts so much. You know, that was a great game. I'm ready to play the next one. I'm not going to buy their console, and I'm not going to stream from their console to get that game. But I'm going to have to wait because they did that. And the idea that the PC is competing with the Xbox instead of complementary to it is what leads to them to continue to act this way, instead of just saying Windows gaming, Xbox gaming is Microsoft gaming. It's all ours. We support it all.
Well, you hope that, you know, with the change in CEOs and the new message that it's one Windows and one platform, that they would kind of go in that direction, but it hasn't happened yet.
Well, instead it's let's smile and pretend like we might.
Right.
Well, we don't. So, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Now, Scott, you wrote some fantastic tweets about streaming from the Xbox One to the PC. Can I read these? Is that okay? Is your input lag too low? Frame rate and resolution too high? Mouse control too precise? Windows 10 is here to help with streaming Xbone games to PC.
There you
That's
go.
fantastic. I want to sign up for Twitter just to follow that now. The other one... I don't normally go through your Twitter, but I did recently. This is great. You wrote, cannot wait to stream Xbox One games to my PC Windows 10. I was trying to figure out how to reduce my GPU power by 85%. It's a common problem. Everybody wants to figure out how to do that, and you found a way.
Yeah, I did some rough math there on GPU power in order to figure out like what percentage of my GPU power would an Xbox One have, and I think I got it about right there if you reduce it by 85%. So I didn't CPU power would be a bigger reduction in like per thread performance. That would be brutal, but
oh man, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's not true. I hate to say that off the top of my head. We do actually deal in these numbers, and we could test it. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? The PC is overall. We talked about the decline of the PC earlier in some of these financial things and stuff. But PC gaming, it's a high margin business where these companies make a lot of money. It's a growth business, and it's got this amazing new young demographic of people who are playing games and watching pro tournaments and streaming things on Twitch. Hi. And everything like that. And like everybody just is like, oh, Gaben, Valve, like the custodians of that platform are not at Microsoft, even though they're doing some good things with DirectX 12 and all of that. And you just wish they would embrace that success, you know? And it, I don't know. They haven't. And at the same time, would we trust them if they tried to? Because we all like walk around shell shocked after Games for Windows Live, right?
Yes.
So I don't know.
Is it time for a question from the chat room?
I think we should. Yeah. Do we have any?
Well, I've got a question from Chuckla here.
Okay.
Here's my question to Damage. What is your Fury level going to be if Intel drags you all the way out to IDF after the barbecue, but Skylake turns out to be a dud?
Yeah, I don't know if that's a...
That's a groaner, Chuckla.
Yeah,
Why do you bother?
I really can't explain why that question is messed up at this point in time, but I can't confirm that it is. So let's revisit that in a podcast or two, and we'll see.
Dudlake. One of the comments in the calls it, instead of Skylake, Dudlake.
I think the answer is buffalo.
Yeah, that was a key. I didn't understand. That was a keyword in the comments that we were supposed to say.
It's an NDA canary.
If you're under a non-disclosure
if you're not under an
agreement,
NDA about a certain...
Oh, if you're not, then you say the word.
If you're not, then you don't say the word.
Oh.
But we've already messed it up so much.
I have no idea how that works.
I don't. Yeah, I was trying to figure out what the proper response would be, and the wording of it was totally messed up. So
I've got a way we can find out about this NDA. Scott, do you know of any processors coming out of Intel in the near future?
Good grief.
One way or the other, we get our answer.
I can't give you any schedules. I think we all know Skylake is coming, but I can't give you any schedules.
I didn't even know about that when I was writing about MSI's stuff.
Oh, really? Yeah. So Skylake is the generation after Haswell. I can say this. It's a talk. So the TIC was the first 14 nanometer, which is Broadwell. The talk is the architectural enhancement that's also on 14 nanometers that comes after they ported a familiar architecture over to a new process, which they did with Broadwell. The expectation is that we're going to see more per thread performance because of the architectural changes. And beyond that, it's rumors, and it's a little weird. Like you get to the point where usually Intel says a little bit more about new stuff than they have with this one. They've played the cards a little close to the vest in some ways, but they did talk at last IDF some about like the things they were doing around Skylake laptops and all of that, with the wireless charging and the WiGig and all that stuff. I think that the generation of laptops based on Skylake will provide some technologies that make like the MacBook that Apple released with no ports, like a harbinger of the future. Not that you want no ports when you don't have any of the wireless technologies they're coming up with, but I think the future ones will have the ability to connect to displays and high bandwidth networks and chargers and things like that without cords. And so laptops based on it should be interesting. We know this from reference platforms. This is all public information. I'm not giving anything away. But the particulars of the architectural changes or what to expect from them, it's all rumors right now, and we'll just have to see.
Wasn't there more of a hype train when Haswell was coming out, and now they are a little bit more tight-lipped about it?
I feel like that the Skylake stuff, there's been less hype. I also think that it's possible, and this is sort of, rumors are kind of kicking this around, but it's possible that we might see a nice increase in desktop performance here. And I would say it's the first time in a long time since we've had that, but the truth is that the Haswell refresh, when we went from the 4770K to the 4790K, I think we're about 400 or 500 megahertz gain there. Wasn't an architectural change, wasn't a process tech change, but it was one of the biggest gains in performance that we had year over year. But I'm hoping that Skylake will give us, like, with a new architecture, we will get, in earnest, some nice boost in performance. Maybe something where, like, if you've been sitting on a Sandy Bridge, like a Core i5 2500K for a while, you look at this and say, oh, like, I really want to upgrade now. That's what I think everybody would hope for, because when we haven't had those gains, like you know, the desktop Broadwell stuff didn't improve things over Haswell substantially, then it's been a little bit rough in the PC market. The question is, why would I upgrade? And not getting anything all that much better. So we'll see. I don't know. I don't want to set too many expectations for this chip, but I think the hope is that maybe we get a nice game.
That's my hope. I'm sitting on an old platform, a Z77 platform, and I want to upgrade and have like NVMe support and boot from PCI Express solid state drives, but I don't want to buy a CPU that's not any better than what I've already got.
Yeah, yeah, and so I think that the hope is that we'll see that. I mean, there are possibilities for architectural gains to improve per thread performance that go beyond, honestly, what we're getting out of the process tech right now in the desktop power envelope, because there's the physics of this in terms of the way they do their die shrinks, and even how they, to some extent, just what they're doing with the process tech, with things like FinFETs and all. It doesn't always turn into higher switching speeds and more clock speed at the sort of end of the hairy end of the frequency voltage curve where we tend to run our CPUs. It's better for low power devices. But architecture, by getting more per clock performance, or by rejiggering your architecture so that you can get to higher clock speeds, say, that's really the place where we have seen bigger gains happen in the past few generations. So I'm hopeful.
We've got another question. A Punk user is curious to see what workload people are using that they are CPU limited.
That's an interesting question. I think if you have a Radeon GPU and you play PC games, that you're often CPU limited these days. And it's really sort of per thread performance there. Punk user works for Intel, so
A little biased.
no, I mean he just he actually is a smart guy and wants to ask questions that are somewhat penetrating. The reality is, to me, I think it is about per thread performance. That's what we want. I built my desktop around and recommend a quad core 8-thread 4790K over Haswell E for gamers. That may change with DirectX 12 and Vulkan. More threads may actually turn into more performance, but we've had this whole sort of Amdahl's law issue for a while where the performance of a single thread has limited gaming performance overall, and you're better off with a CPU that has fewer cores, 4 cores or so, and higher clock frequencies than with a widely wide core CPU, unless you have a particular application that benefits from lots of threads. And if you do, then Intel has the chip for you now. Like they can do that. They can even do it in multiple sockets and scale way up with the Xeons, and they're amazing. So that's the thing that I think we all want to see when there's a new architecture is the per thread performance to go up.
Well, Ben, you're trash talking Ivy Bridge and Z77.
Well,
that's what I've got, man.
Talking. I've had it I've had it since launch, and it's been great. And I'm not CPU limited to directly answer his question, but I don't want to spend money to be in the same place.
Yeah.
It's the platform that I really want to upgrade, and I can't unless I can put my Ivy Bridge CPU in the new socket. I kind of have to buy a new CPU.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that is nice about it is this: if you're buying the most expensive CPU, or the most expensive quad core Haswell, for instance, like a 4790K, you're probably not going to be CPU limited. I mean, I've got one on my system and it's awesome. But if you're buying a lower end product, then you're not getting all that goodness. And when the architecture improves, then everything gets better. And that Core i3 that you recommended for your buddy is a lot more potent, right? And so it's a good thing to get a new architecture, even if it isn't the case that the fastest chips, that you absolutely feel the need for that. But I think that there are folks right now running not just Ivy Bridge like you've been, but Sandy's, who haven't felt compelled to upgrade. And if they see a nice gain, that cumulatively the feature changes and the performance changes and the power consumption reductions, whatever, all the things that have happened, that it'd be time to build a new system. And honestly, everything has gotten better. The cases that you can buy now, the builder friendly features, the low cost water cooling stuff, if you're into that. You know, the USB 3.1 and USB-C Type-C ports that we're starting to see. There are a lot of reasons why, if you build a system now, you know, you can get something that's really compelling. But the CPU is the centerpiece of that. So, you know, let's hope that it's a nice one.
I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. I think the new features of a new platform would be nice, and maybe boot from a PCI-style SSD. But what's more important to me is processing power. When I work on music, I run out of processing headroom pretty quickly on my 3570K, and I've got it overclocked a bit because virtual instruments are hungry and plugins are hungry. And if you got a lot of them going, it's like, oh shoot, my buddy's over here to work on music, and I'm running out of. It's starting to cut out here, and so I got to start finding ways to free up more processing headroom.
You can blame.
What was that?
Oh, I said you can blame Avid for that since you can't freeze tracks in Pro Tools yet.
Yeah.
I would say that's a classic case where you should have bought the chip with hyperthreading.
I guess I should have. Now, does that buy approximately 20% more performance?
Yeah, it could be more. I mean, that's the music processing is probably integer workload. You know, you're going to have twice as many threads, and I think that I think it could be more. I think it could be really nice, actually. I don't want to put a number to it, but I wouldn't be shocked if it was in the 40% or more range.
Since it's so threaded.
Since it just sounds like a really use case where hyperthreading makes a lot of sense. So if I were you and I was doing that, I'd at least consider it. And you might want to check in some forums and see if people are discussing that, if they've had good results with hyperthreading. But anything like that where you're just doing that sort of real-time integer processing of lots of threads with you know, virtual instruments, man,
that's the thing, though. The people who are into audio, they're like, oh, yeah, any modern 4-core processors is more than you could ever want. And they're talking about something like 5 years old. You're like, oh, man, really? They're really clueless. Like, they think core count is it, and there are no improvements other than adding cores.
Yeah, well, in this case, I don't know. We need to come up, maybe you can help us. We need to come up with a benchmark for that. And like being able to put numbers to something like that, it's hard because a lot of the times the application doesn't have instrumentation built in.
Yeah.
But we should maybe if there's some way, maybe we can come up with a test. I think that'd be an interesting use case. In you know, audio processing is something that a fair number of people do. So if we can figure something out, maybe we can come up with a benchmark.
Yeah. It's. I mean, if Skylake did have, you know, they went to 6 cores. For whatever they're, I mean, hopefully they're still into Devil's Canyon and do please the enthusiasts, give us high clocks right out of the gate. But if they did 6-core with hyperthreading, still in that kind of price range, without upgrading to the fancier platform, I'd buy it.
Well, you might want to get a Core i7 5820K too. Then, I mean, they give you 6 cores now.
Do I look like I'm made of money?
So, okay. All right.
Well, you do have that fancy shirt and tie.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually.
Outlet stores. All right, we got another question here. Since we're talking about processors, AA Guitar 1 says, does anyone here care about integrated graphics? He's not sure why Intel's putting so much of it into high-end CPUs.
Man,
that's a fair question.
I care about it in laptops.
Yeah, I was gonna say if I could, I have an answer for this one, but
and the other place that integrated graphics is becoming important is all-in-ones, like the iMac. But you know, there are a lot of those out there, and a lot of them, they have limited power budgets. Either they're going to use a mobile GPU that's relatively sort of mid-range to low-end, that's discrete, or they're going to use integrated graphics. And you know, the reality here, in my view, is that the balance of Intel's chips historically has been too much CPU for the graphics that they provide. I think that they have, because they're traditionally a CPU company, whatever, they haven't really done the right balance for a lot of usage scenarios. I think going heavy on graphics is following the way of things. Everybody else is doing that, and makes a lot of sense. I would like to see more tablets based on Intel chips that have good graphics. There are lots of places. So that's I don't know about you guys, but I'm happy to see it. For the desktop, for low-end stuff, that's great. For high-end stuff, I have no interest at all. I want to play games, I'm going to get a GeForce or a Radeon.
Yeah, that's my problem with it too, because I feel like, they're putting the best integrated graphics chips on the highest end CPUs. It's like, no, keep those for the low end CPUs, because the high end CPUs either aren't gaming or they're going to have a dedicated card.
Oh, well, here's the other part of it. Like they did this with desktop Broadwell. They brought out just a couple of Broadwell chips for the desktop. It goes into the same socket as the Haswell stuff, and it's got the Iris Pro graphics. And the interesting thing about that is Iris Pro uses a 128 meg EDRAM cache, that's a separate chip on the same package, in order to accelerate graphics. And that chip, that EDRAM acts as a L4 cache for the entire CPU, not just for graphics, but for everything. And so when they first did that in the prior generation, they did not ship a desktop version of it. And that was frustrating, honestly. I think there are benchmarks, not very many, but there are a few benchmarks that we run where we tested one of those chips with the EDRAM in an Intel test platform, and that cache made it faster. You can improve, in some cases, per thread performance or memory bound performance with that cache. I think there's a case to be made that if you're Intel and you're making a desktop class chip and you have this big cache and better graphics and all that you should ship it and let enthusiasts find out what they want to do with it. It may be a home theater PC. It might be some crazy thing that somebody's doing with the workstation where that L4 cache is better than, and there are some numbers we put to this, better than like the quad memory channels in an X99. Just because it's there right next to the chip, it's low latency, it's pretty fast. So I'm happy for them to ship those things. But that doesn't mean that it's going to be the chip that like the enthusiast who has a discrete GPU for a gaming rig is going to select. Not necessarily. But I think they should put it out there and let people build what they want with them. I'm glad they did it.
Jeff, your MacBook Pro, you said you have Iris Pro?
Well, it's Iris. It's whatever
okay.
Iris they shipped with. I'm pretty sure it's Iris Pro, but I'm not sure
Okay.
which one
I was
it
just
is off the
wondering
top of my head.
If you've done
But yeah, I was
anything
going to
with
say,
it.
like, the thing with laptops especially is, I guess now especially with high-density screens, it's not necessarily that you're gaming, but that's part of it. But, like, with high DPI screens, you have these huge resolutions of complex animations. Like, okay, maybe it's not going to play a game, but it could, but it's just going to smooth out the general experience. Like the MacBook Pro, I have a Retina display on that, and it's not like that smooth when it's doing like window management animations and stuff, and it sometimes hitches. It's not exciting. It's really dull, but it just makes for a smoother experience overall. And I just like for that, I'm happy to have that as well.
Cool.
Is this a good time to jump into the system guide?
Yeah, I was going to say, we're talking about what CPUs and stuff people should choose, so.
They are lightly correlated
one.
topics, yes. Jeff, you're the one who polished this up for us. You want to tell us about it?
Okay, so, as longtime readers know, we do system guides. We do 4 different guides. This time around, we're just doing like our general system guide, where we tell you how to build a PC. And, we update that as the PC hardware market changes. Probably going to be doing it again soon. But so for this time around, the biggest changes were in the graphics card market, because we had the R9 Fury X, we had the R9 Fury, the GeForce 980 Ti came out a little bit before that. An AMD just refreshed all of their rebranded something. They launched Radeon R7 and R9 300 series cards. So we felt like it was time to go ahead and just do an update.
Yeah, and a lot of this is down to new GPUs,
Right.
which we've discussed so much on the podcast. I don't want to. Maybe we shouldn't get into that too much. But Radeon Furies are there, GeForce GTX 980 Ti is there, and then sort of on down the chain. One interesting thing about that, Jeff, is I didn't see Radeon R9 390 or 390X, but instead it was the prior gen.
Yeah. So, well, do you want to field this problem, Scott, or do you want me to try and fumble my way through it?
I mean, we tested it. We know the numbers, right? The 290X is cheaper than the 390X. It has 4 gigs of RAM instead of 8 gigs of RAM. Slightly lower clock speeds, but like a lot cheaper. And so right now, until the 290Xs are gone, there's a value proposition issue here, right?
It's like get these cards while you can, because they're they're cheap and they're good.
And so you did that. You after looking at, you selected both the 290 and the 290X over a 390 and a 390X.
Yes. And
then I think that there was a lower end Radeon too, like a 260. I think that you picked as well.
Yeah, we keep the 260X around as a kind of counterpoint to the GTX 750 Ti, which buy the GTX 750 Ti if you can, but like the 260X is $115, and I recall it being decent. It's not quite as fast as the 750 Ti, but it's still good for entry level gaming. We recommend an R9 380 too, which is the R9 285 with the new coat of paint on.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only Radeon 300 series card we recommend.
Right. It's a little weird, a little complicated. We're not actually saying that the new Radeons aren't good. It's just that AMD tweaked the prices and the configs a little, and those products where they're sort of taking the same chips and giving them a new name, there's no reason to be afraid of buying the older one if it's a better value. On the GeForce side, it's easier because they had a whole new line of Maxwell-based GPUs, and they're better than the Kepler-based ones, and it's pretty straightforward. So, let's see. One of the other things is this was my resistance was broken.
Yeah.
And you added a CPU that I have a grudge against.
Right. Yeah, so we
I already know
added,
what you're talking about.
Yeah, we added for the first time a recommendation for the Core i7 5820K, which is it? Yeah, it's 6-core Haswell-E. But it's got one major, like, I'm not going to call it a flaw. We'll call it a change versus like the older like extreme processors, which is that it only has 28 PCIe lanes from the CPU instead of 40 on the higher end Haswell-E chips. So you can't do stuff like was it Quad SLI?
No, look, this is the deal. You're going to get 8 PCI Express lanes to PCI slot 1, 8 to PCI slot 2 for dual GPU, just like you would if you bought a quad-core Haswell. Even though you have an X99 motherboard, even though that motherboard says on the box that it can do dual by 16, right? You will not get that when you put the CPU into it. So the CPU controls a platform-level feature. And Intel, in its wisdom, decided to fiddle with every single possible knob that it could for product segmentation, including this one, and made a product where, like, if you want to get the cheapest one that plugs into this platform, you lose one of the attributes of this platform that it's sold with. And I think that's silly. I don't think they did it because there was a great reason to do it. I think they did it because they could. And we did not recommend it for a long time for that reason. The thing is that it's the cheapest way to get a 6-core, 12-thread processor on the X99 platform, to get into X99, and you'll get quad memory channels and all that. For people who are building sort of a workstation-y kind of thing and don't care about PCI Express bandwidth, aren't doing multi-GPU, or think that they don't care about the additional bandwidth for multi-GPU because they don't realize about display resolutions in the future and passing data over that bus or whatever. Like, the 5820K can be a pretty good deal. I just wish that the world were a better place and Intel hadn't cut those PCI Express lanes out of it. But given everything, we put it back in the guide because everybody was yelling at us about it for a long time, and because
just to
it
just
does
to
make
play
sense
devil's
to put it in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just to play devil's advocate, like even if like now I may be wrong about this, but if you're running like dual GPUs in Crossfire or SLI, with today's monitors, maybe those cards aren't saturating the entire bandwidth of the PCIe 3.0 bus, are they? Right?
Well, that's the word. The reality is that today's monitors, for the first time in a long time, do 144 hertz at high resolutions. Sure. Resolutions and refresh rates are going up. New display standards are being created to support them, and Radeons with XDMA Crossfire pass data over PCI Express entirely with no Crossfire bridge.
Uh-huh.
I have not tested under the most stressful situations all this stuff and figured it out. But, PCI Express is a difficult transport for latency-sensitive graphics data because I don't think you can open up a channel and get, guaranteed quality of service, low-latency transfers. So when you're bandwidth limited a little bit, then the latency problem could become big quickly. I don't like it. And I think that when you have a chip that can do all of that and you're selling motherboards against all of those lanes, that you shouldn't just snip that out because, hey, today it's okay. When they did that, when they made that choice, 144 hertz IPS displays at 2560 by 1440 or variable refresh were not common. Now they are. Right? 4K was not ubiquitous as something that you get for $600 or less. Now it is. Coming soon, I think, will be 4K panels in combination with high refresh rates. That changes the requirements again.
Yeah.
People do multi-display with those. At some point, we get to the point where that those lanes are a limitation. And if you're spending that much money and you see on the box that it supports the lanes, and you get a CPU and it screws that up, it bugs me. I'm going to stop talking.
Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
But it bugs me.
I get it. No, I get it. But we don't generally recommend SLI or Crossfire. That's something people who know what who know what they want and who know what they are doing. They should be aware of that. But
when you get to the very high end and you want to drive big displays and things like that, say you're building a high end system, and first of all, we're being ridiculous because we got X99. Right?
Yeah.
Right. We've gone to the quad memory channel extreme thing. Once you get there, then there's only so much GPU power you can get out of one chip and one card. At some point, you have to go up, and the only way you do it is multi-GPU. This platform is the platform for multi-GPU because the way we recommend it. When you hit your limits, when you've gone beyond what is possible with a single GPU, then you go multi. So... All right, like you said, you get to stop me, guys.
Do we want to talk about anything else in here specifically component-wise, or do we want to talk about some of our sample builds that we did?
I was wondering about your cheapo build, the $683 gaming rig.
Well, this is something. So this we featured this in the last guide, but we tweaked it a little bit. This is our budget box is only $683. And it's a really nice system. It's got a GFIT 3258 in it, the Pentium Anniversary Edition that you can overclock the snot out of.
Is that the technical term?
Yes.
Okay.
For the first time, we got a really nice case with it for the first time. I think, going from nice to really nice, not to imply that our previous picks were, bad. But we put Fractal Designs Define S case in, so that's a really, really nice case for $75. And, it's got a GTX 960 in it, man. That's crazy. The amount of power that has for a system this cheap is pretty crazy. So
and those two Haswell cores can go up to 4.5, 4.6, 4.7, 4.8 gigahertz. That's our Amdahl's Law special right there. That's a good gaming rig. I guess the only caveat that we have to put in every time is there are some PC games that assume you need to have 4 threads. Not 4 cores, but 4 threads. And those games may not start correctly on the G3258 processor, assuming it doesn't have the oomph to do it. If they will start, it'll be fast enough to run them. It's really, the hardware is good. But but it could be an issue. But that's a lot of gaming rig for under $700.
Yeah,
and it should be quiet. Like you're not compromising on anything significant. I guess the only thing is that you don't have much storage, right? There's no hard drive.
No, there's not. Yeah, I was gonna say like, oops, I forget that, but no, like, we only have a. That would have been a way to discover that, but no, we only have a BX100, the Crucial's BX100, 250 gigabyte SSD in here. I don't know if this was an oversight on my part, but like the suggestion we make, or I would make, is like throw a $50 Western Digital Blue 1 terabyte drive in here if you need bulk storage, or just skip the SSD and put the Western Digital drive in there. If the SSD is too much money, because it is like a $30-40 savings. So that's the one limitation. Like if you get a lot of games, you will have trouble, I think. But
yeah, but I mean, otherwise this is a nice system, 8 gigs of RAM, and the nice piece, the pretty good CPU cooler, and that case is going to be super quiet, and yeah. So that's we don't need to look at the rest of the builds, but that one's just fun to see. It's fun to see what you can get.
So, Jeff, if I were to build a computer now, would you recommend it? Is now a good time to build a computer?
Give it a few weeks. Let's just say that.
Okay.
I would say give it a few weeks. We don't know a whole lot about Skylake yet. We don't know when it's coming out publicly, but there's so much smoke. Like, I don't know. Wait a few weeks.
Yeah, and Windows 10 is not quite out yet.
Well, yeah, and Windows 10, I don't know if that's like a reason either way to say buy a PC or don't buy a PC, because...
I mean, if I were going to go to the effort of putting it together, I'd want to install the OS fresh, not go through that upgrade, I mean, I don't know. We're talking about a short window of time, right? It's just a week, less than a week away for the Windows 10 release, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird time. It's a weird time to release.
It's a really weird time for a guide, but
Sorry. We do a lot of these. We'll do an update again soon.
Yeah.
So you guys polled the Tech Report readership to see how many of them wanted to upgrade to Windows 10 right away. What about you guys?
Man, I don't know if I'm gonna have time. Like, I have work to do on my computer. I can't screw with everything and get it all messed up and have to reconstruct all that. I got work to do.
I've got to upgrade test rigs to Windows 10 for some of the stuff I'm going to be doing. Everybody wants to know about Windows 10 drivers for graphics and DirectX 12 and all that, and so that's happening. I think for my personal system, it's a question of how ridiculously on deadline are you? As soon as I get like a window of several hours where I can upgrade and afford to risk my productivity, I'll do it right away. But probably I'll have 10 test rigs running it before my own PC does.
And you, Ben?
I learned via Twitter that it's going to be a while for me. I rely on VMware, and Windows 10 as a host isn't supported, so I have to wait for them to release a new version of Workstation.
Hey, you know what? I think we should take any more questions from the chat, and then we should probably wrap this thing up. I gotta fly out in the morning, guys, for yet another meeting.
Do we want to just talk about the motherboard?
Nope.
Okay.
That's what I was saying.
Can I do a 5-second shout out to Mark Nelson, our motherboard writer? He made this really nice review of Gigabyte's X99 Gaming 5P motherboard. It's a really nice motherboard. You should go read his review. He did a good job on it, but we're not going to talk about it here.
Hopefully, what we can do is have Mark on to talk about his next review. We just that's poor planning, so on my part. But hopefully we can get him on it, and we can go through the next one.
I've got at least a pair of questions here.
Okay.
Someone's asking, do you think it will soon be possible to switch the workload from discrete graphics to the integrated graphics in idle situations and rerouting the display output to the adapter where the display is connected?
that was a thing several years ago where like NVIDIA did that, where they would route the GeForce output through the IGP from Intel, and you could plug into that, and then it would be lower power, and it was a thing for a while, and a couple things happened. One was, I think that it was just hard to make those things play well together, and then also the power draw of a big GPU at idle now is very low. So there's no real penalty for having your monitor plugged directly into a port. Another thing that happened was variable refresh displays from NVIDIA and now AMD, which you do not support with this pass your video through the IGP scheme. So my sense is those have pretty much completely gone away, but they once existed as an option. And I don't expect they'll come back anytime soon. I don't see the need for them, and I really doubt that NVIDIA and AMD will give up that sort of connection to the monitor control for the long run. I don't think that's good for their business to be sort of gated by what Intel happens to be doing, and the variable refresh thing is one really strong example of that.
Speaking of variable refresh, you have a couple monitors in waiting for testing, right?
Yeah, that's another thing I need to be doing.
I'm looking forward to that.
Thanks for the reminder. I just, you know what's going to happen is Nathan, who's in the chat right now on Twitch, is my son, is going to be giving us an evaluation of the Asus MG279Q. He's been testing it with FreeSync, and then also just at 144 hertz fixed. And I think he's going to come up with some assessment of it before I do. So it won't be the same thing as what I'm doing with the colorimeter and the eggheady stuff, but it should give you a feel for what it's like to game with that compared to... He's had one of those 27-inch Korean 60 hertz IPS panels for a long time. And now we're talking about variable refresh and high refresh in a similar size display. So look for that before you see anything from me.
Now, maybe this isn't necessarily testing we've done, but has anybody noticed with the newer FreeSync displays, did they fix whatever that ghosting issue was that one of the early ones had?
The MG279Q has less ghosting than the BenQ that we tested at first. And that, I think, goes down to maybe two things. One is the scaler chip, the monitor scaler chip that Asus used is different, which is one of the reasons that monitor can't do FreeSync at rates above 90 hertz, which is a little bit of a disadvantage. But the other thing is Asus tuned it themselves. There's tuning that you have to do for voltage. You don't want to overshoot, but you need to do the right type of overdrive to the LCD to prevent ghosting. And it based on my inspection of the thing in some of the ghosting intensive demos, Asus basically just nailed it. And they did a better job. There's less ghosting than there was on the BenQ. BenQ isn't terrible, but the reality is every FreeSync display is going to be a little bit different. It's up to the monitor maker to tune to prevent ghosting. And this one is better than the first wave was.
Mm-hmm. We've got another question from Selmore. What use would be there for a new Thunderbolt with only 40 gigabytes of throughput, since there's not that many storage devices that can use it? I could only imagine uncompressed video signal from multiple 4K monitors to use that much.
New Thunderbolt. I mean, I don't know. Everybody's going to use USB 3.1 now, and that's kind of over, I think. I mean, the whole idea behind
Thunderbolt, the new Thunderbolt uses the same physical connection as USB-C anyway, so it's like, if they're going to integrate it, I mean, like, it's not going to be a difference in physical interface.
Yeah, there were some uses for Thunderbolt that were, well, first of all, it was going to be optical at one point.
Yeah.
Right? But there were some uses for Thunderbolt that, if you think about Thunderbolt as an external PCI Express connection, then the uses become interesting, including like and there's some out there, but I don't think they've ever been like really mass produced and sold in any great numbers, but you can get an external module that holds a graphics card, plug your laptop into it over a high-speed connection, a Thunderbolt connection, and you have a discrete GPU that let you play games on your laptop when you dock.
Yeah, Alienware does something like that.
Yeah, and MSI has one, but it's a custom docking thing. I don't think it's Thunderbolt. But an external high bandwidth link could have some interesting uses. The reality is that for most things that require a fair amount of bandwidth, it looks like USB 3.1 is going to win, and Thunderbolt weirdly hasn't really stepped into the places where those other standards don't service it. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen that would be beneficial there. I kind of think Thunderbolt is probably, a few years from not being relevant.
Yeah, my MacBook Pro has 2 Thunderbolt ports, and I have no idea what to do with them. So they're just taking up space. I don't know what Thunderbolt is. It Thunderbolt 3? I don't know. But yeah, it's not. I think outside of Hollywood, it's not like really gonna see a lot of use.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Should we wait?
I don't know. Do we have more questions?
It's kind of hard to keep up with this chat here. Comes through so quick.
Yeah, I can't. While I'm talking, I have no idea what. I look down every once in a while and see a random out of context line. I'm like, what? It's good. That has nothing to do with anything we said.
So maybe this is a question. Ryand TW says, Project Cars, I guess, should I buy a i7 4790K or a 5820K? What about a GPU for 1080p? I guess with that game, I use a GTX 980 as a 980 Ti overkill for 1080p, unless I'm turning on like DSR or VSR. I forget which one is the NVIDIA one.
DSR is the NVIDIA
DSR.
one. You don't need a 980 Ti. You can get away with a GTX 980 for running Project Cars at 1080p. No question. I mean, that's enough. If you're going to do something like DSR, where you basically run a virtual 4K resolution and scale it down, then you can stress the video card enough that you want a 980 Ti. But I don't think it's necessary. The other question is what about that? CPU? Which CPU to get? I haven't tested Project Cars with different CPUs. Generally speaking, for gaming, I would say the 4790K right now is the best CPU, and something that is fewer cores but the best combination of clock speed and architecture is probably going to continue to be the best gaming CPU, including for Project Cars for a while. That would be my guess, unless it's the miracle of threading compared to everything else. But I just don't think it is, because it's actually pretty CPU bound. On Radeon cards on our Haswell E X99 test rig with 8 cores. So, yeah, I think it's pretty clearly 4790K or something like that.
Okay, well, let's wrap it up there, I think.
One more question. Somebody's putting Scott on the spot here.
Oh, okay.
Combat Ineffective is asking, will there be another SSD endurance test?
I doubt it. We proved kind of that one particular thing with that test, which is that consumer SSDs, not any particular brand, but consumer SSDs generally, will go a long way. It's possible that the time could come to do another one if there are some issues, or if like TLC flash becomes really ubiquitous and people want to know. But honestly, like, that's a lot of work. And doing it again to answer a question I feel like we kind of already answered, it seems unlikely. So we'd have to come up with a concept and a testing procedure and a whole thing that made sense, that answered a different question in a useful way for us to decide to do that. So I don't know. I wouldn't bet on it. I'm sorry if you're excited about another one. I wouldn't bet on it. But, pitch us your ideas. Maybe we'll come up with something.
Okay, great. Any other topics? Any other questions? Are we done for the night?
I think we're done, man. I gotta pack.
It's been a long day.
You know, I don't even know how to close a podcast. What does Jordan do?
Sometimes
get that in a
he'd
wristband
ask us what
or-
we're working on, but we can't tell you that tonight, so don't do that. And then, you know, let's just thank everybody who listened, and thanks to the chat, especially for the questions and for sticking with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
All right.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, Ben and Luke, thanks for joining us the first time and
Yeah.
making
It was a
it through. Yeah, it's
Been a pleasure.
So,
It's a lot of fun. Hope we'll have you all back.
yeah, hopefully we can do it again next Thursday, same time, same channel.
Sounds good.
All right, take care, guys.
Have a good night.
Thanks, everybody. All right, what do we call this thing? The title.
Buffalo.
I think the audience stumped Scott Wasson. Let's put that in there.
181.
Buffalo, buffalo, buffalo,
Buffalo,
buffalo, buffalo, buffalo.
Yeah, that's a sentence, right? That's all just buffalo.
Yes.